Hello, everybody. Welcome. Yes, Wendy, free Palestine. I agree. Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Oh, microphone there. Hopefully that's a little better. Welcome. I'm going to be digging into how liberals across the country and the liberal media are losing their goddamn minds over the fact that some generals might be fired. Oh, dear God, not our beloved generals. Also, I'm going to get into Trump's latest push to decrease drug prices. Believe it or not, Trump could be involved in decreasing your drug prices. Don't fall into the trap of thinking he cares about you, though. Please don't do that. And we're going to get into a lot more. Oh yeah, the revelations of why exactly Trump did a 180 on Yemen, on the Houthis. 1 minute saying we're going to bomb them into oblivion. The next minute saying we made a deal with them. We're going to get into that. And I hope I'll have plenty of time to go through. There's this great new expose on everything about Zelensky and the proxy war coming from Ukraine. The top political scientist, one of the top political scientists in Ukraine, a Ukrainian, is revealing, and guess what? It was everything we already knew, but it's great to get the details from behind the scenes. All of that coming up right now. Please click thumbs up, click share, all that good stuff. Leave a comment. It's good for our Lord and Savior, the algorithm. It is good for the algorithm if you leave a comment. I'm going to start off with RFK Jr. I don't know about accidentally. It's unclear as to why he felt the need to do this. It's pretty great, though, accidentally or not. He outs the massive bribery that Trump has been getting or has gotten in his campaigns from Big Pharma. The bribery he's gotten from Big Pharma. But anyway, I'll play the clip. And as I play this clip, I can let you know I have found a platform I think I hate more than Instagram. It's Threads, which is an Instagram offshoot. Oh, God. I don't know if I've ever played anything from Threads, but Jesus, this sucks. Okay. Because there's no video controls. It just plays constantly all the time. It's just garbage.
Because it was radioactive. They knew you couldn't get it by Congress. We now have a president who is a man of his word, who has the courage. President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry, too. I think they gave you $100 million. Yeah. But he can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country. And
now, unfortunately, the only way for me to pause is like hold the thing down. Anyway, he just said he takes $100 million from Big Pharma, but he can't be bought. So he's using this as evidence that he can't be bought, but how do we know how many decisions he's making based on the fact that Big Pharma gives him hundreds of millions of dollars? I mean, of course, we knew that. We didn't for a moment think that Big Pharma wasn't funding Donald Trump, but also just outside of Big Pharma. What do you mean he can't be bought? Trump's bought all the time. He's bought in so why do you think he's about to run off to Saudi Arabia to give them a reach around? What do you mean he can't be bought? He said he was going to decrease the budget of the Pentagon, and then he spun around and increased it to over $1 trillion because the weapon contractors have bought him, like, among other things. But it's like, what do you mean he can't be bought? RFK Jr. is just so full of shit on so many different topics. And as I've said before, RFK Jr. is good on a few things. I'm impressed. He continues to somewhat go after corporate agriculture, big ag, but it's like, why? I don't know. It's maybe silly to say why lie your ass off because all these goons are politicians. They're politicians. They're oligarchs. Oh yeah, and I'll play a little more of this where RFK claims that Trump is against the oligarchs. You are the fucking oligarchs. Anyway.
Standing here for the American people. I don't know what, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich who are saying that President Trump is on this side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump.
No, he just has certain oligarchs he's taken the handies from, and certain ones that he hates. He's in bed with oligarchs like used to be Sheldon Adelson. Adelson died, so now it's his wife, Miriam, I think, Adelson. The Koch brothers. He seems to be working pretty close recently with Bezos and Zuckerberg and Elon Musk. So he's against the oligarchs? No, he's just got his team of oligarchs. That's not against the oligarchs. He's not for the people. He's just for certain oligarchs more than others. This is dumb as shit.
President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President, for your courage, I'll say, because I don't want to be crude, your intestinal fortitude, your stiff spine.
He did say something correct there. Trump does have intestinal fortitude because he eats McDonald's every day. He eats McDonald's every day, and other than turning him a bizarre shade of orange, he seems to still be functioning. He must have intestines like steel to eat that, because to eat that garbage every day. I have one like McDonald's fry and I blow my ass out. It's amazing how Donald Trump does that. So RFK did say something accurate there.
And your willingness to stand up for the American people. We have 4.2% of the world's population.
Willingness to stand up for the American people. In some ways, maybe these drug prices will actually be lowered. Okay. But in plenty of other ways, he's not standing up for the American people. He's doing all he can to gut Social Security. He's doing all he can to harm food stamps, to decrease taxes for the rich while they go up or stay the same for the poor, gutting schools for the poor. Like, stand up for the American people. What are you talking about?
We have 4.2% of the world's population. Our country represents 75% of the revenues for pharmaceutical companies. We spend in our country $1,126 per capita on drugs. In Britain, they spend about $240.
So he's making good points about how much we spend on big pharma, on pharmaceuticals. But there's several points that these
240.
These two lunatics are not making, which are, for example, why is it that 75% of all big pharma drugs are 75% of their profits come in America? Because most other countries, they're all covered. Most other countries just have healthcare. They just get the drugs they need for free or close to free. That's why 70% of their income, 75% comes in the United States. But of course, they're not harping on that. There's nothing, I don't know about RFK Jr.'s past, but I can tell you Donald Trump has never said we should all have, Medicare for all or free health care. He's never said that. I don't know if RFK has, but they don't want to give us free health care. They've never talked about giving us free health care. And as I said with Biden, literally flip of the pen, they could give the entire United States health care, but they're not doing that. So if you're going to talk about these drug prices, which I'm going to give him credit too. Trump is doing something that, if it works, is that Democrats not just failed. It's tempting to say failed to do. They never did, never really wanted to, which is decrease drug prices. Instead, what did the Democrats do? We got one. In California, they decreased the price of insulin. Did Biden? Maybe Biden did something on insulin too. But it's like Trump, like the Democrats are so pathetic that on certain issues, Trump looks like a left winger compared to them. On certain issues, on plenty of other issues, he's fucking fascist. Okay, he's a disgusting human being. But on certain issues, the Democrats are so pathetic that Trump is able to lower drug prices more than they are, assuming this all plays out. By the way, and it just happens to fit in here, considering we're talking about drug prices, I want to stop for a moment and just 1 minute and talk about the sponsor of this show, which is Chapter is a Medicare and Medicare Advantage advice company that's free. It's completely free if you're 65 years of age or older, or your parents are. In order to navigate Medicare, you have to somehow analyze 24,000 plans. That's not an exaggeration. Literally 24,000 plans. And so they help you do that. And they have an AI system that that goes to the plans and helps you try to find the best one. Now, here are some important notes, which is that 96% of people who use Chapter for free, again, return to use it the following year. Seniors have historically saved over $1,000 a year. Chapter has a near perfect review record online. They have an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. And I already mentioned that it's free. So yeah, just check out if Chapter is right for you or your parents. 65 years or older is when you can join up Medicare. You need to go to askchapter.org/camp, my last name, or call up 757-349-8232, 757-349-8232, and you'll talk to a real live human being. All of this info is also in the description. But yeah, completely free to go use Chapter. But all right, let's keep going here. And I want to read some of this article from Guardian about these drug prices. Trump signs order aiming to slash U.S. drug prices to match those abroad. The White House is unveiling an aggressive drug pricing strategy targeting pharmaceutical companies, promising to dramatically cut prescription drug costs for American consumers. Trump condemned the current pricing system as redistribution that has allowed drug makers to exploit U.S. patients. And yeah, all our entire healthcare system is to exploit U.S. patients. So you don't need to just make it about drug prices. Make it about everything. Redistribution allowed drug makers to exploit, and signed an executive order that he says will lead to matching lower drug prices match them to the lower prices abroad. And so let's see. Here's Trump saying, even though the United States is home to only 4% of the world's population, pharmaceutical companies make more than 2/3 of their profits in America. That's not a good thing. It's also so bizarre which things Trump picks to, like, why does he care about this and doesn't care about, I mean, I guess because he views it as harming like other countries somehow, or he wants to, I don't know. It's unclear why he picks this. I mean, why not give everyone health care if he actually cared about this? I think we know why, because RFK Jr. said it in that clip. He takes $100 million from the Big Pharma and health insurance companies. Writing earlier on his social media, he said the plan would reduce prescription drug and pharmaceutical prices in the U.S. almost immediately 30 to 80%. So here's what you do whenever Trump says something. First of all, you take the absolute lowest end of what he's saying. So if he said, I'm going to get our tariffs, you take whatever the lowest is. So he says 30 to 80%. That means 30% max. So you take the lowest amount he's talking about. And then you also add in a statement after whatever he said, which is, this could happen, or maybe he'll change his mind next week. Maybe a lawsuit will stop him. Maybe Big Pharma will call him up and he'll suddenly switch. And sometimes the switch is good. Like, for example, what happened with the Houthis. We're going to talk more about that in a bit. And I covered it the other day as well. But there's some more analysis on why Trump quickly did a 180 on the war with Yemen. Sometimes his crazy 180s are useful, like that one. Sometimes his crazy 180s are like, wait, you said you were going to do this thing and you're not doing it at all. It's a lot of that stuff that goes on. So you never really know. The policy plan, dubbed Most Favored Nation, would force pharmaceutical companies to match the lowest global prices, in effect ending what Trump describes as systematic overcharging. Yeah, he suddenly cares about Americans. He suddenly cares about Americans' pocketbooks. During the final months, maybe it's because he's so hopped up on drugs, it really hits close to home. During the final months of his first term, I would love to, sorry, I keep interrupting myself. I would love to see, if you just took the cocktail that Joe Biden has taken over the years and a cocktail that Trump has taken over the years. Because, you know, Trump's like sober, right? No alcohol or no party drugs, but he is on all kinds of the prescription stuff, right? That doesn't count. But if you were to take the two cocktails and just put them on a table, like how high do you think that pile would go of the pills between the two of them? Anyway, the plan would have tied reimbursements for 50 drugs by Medicare to the lowest prices paid. Oh, sorry. During the final months of his first term, Trump sought to push through a similar plan, which would have tied reimbursements for 50 drugs by Medicare to the lowest prices paid by certain other countries. A federal judge blocked the effort after ruling the administration had failed to give the public a chance to comment. The Biden administration later rescinded the proposal under pressure from hospitals and drug companies. Trump's order will likely draw strong opposition from the pharmaceutical industry. Maybe Trump's doing this because of something that may or may not have happened with Luigi Mangione. Maybe that's why. That's why he made this choice. But so he tried to do something similar at the end of his last term, and it was stopped by a court. So let's see if this one's stopped by the courts. And then, of course, Biden rescinds it because somehow Trump is to the left of the Democrats on pharmaceuticals. Like that's how pathetic the Democrats are. Speaking of pathetic Democrats, I'm now going to get into the liberal world. Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your friends. The liberal world freaking out that Trump and Hegseth are firing a bunch of generals. And there are plenty of areas where I think we're headed towards fascism. There are plenty of areas. I mean, the Border Patrol is grabbing people up left and right. Trump just signed an executive action. I covered it on Unredacted tonight. Executive action a few weeks ago, that quote unquote unleashes the police. Because, yeah, they've been so leashed. There's really, our police have had a real tough time going after folks. So absolutely going towards fascism in so many ways. However, I'll tell you what I'm not crying about is firing generals, firing the people whose entire lives has been based on how they want to kill other people. And here's the thing. They're also not firing all the generals. They're decreasing the 4-star generals by like 20%. So here's CNN. Hegseth orders Pentagon to cut number of senior generals by 20%. And I wanted to read to you the part of the liberal media freaking out. Senator Jack Reed, the top Democrat on the Senate Armed Services Committee, questioned the rationale for the cuts and warned dismissing top officers without sound justification and that it could cripple our military. Good. Great. I would love to cripple our military that is just obliterating nations around the world. As according to Brown University's cost of war study, we've killed 4.5 to 6 million innocent people in just the global war on terror. That does not count our bombs raining down on Gaza. It does not count a lot of what's happened recently in Syria. It does not count so much that has gone on, our bombing of Yemen recently. But just in the global war on terror, 4.5 to 6 million human beings. God, I hope the machinery behind that isn't crippled. I hope the machinery behind that mass genocide of human people isn't having a difficult time because they have 20% fewer generals. Here's back to Senator Jack Reed. I have always advocated for efficiency at the Department of Defense, but tough personnel decisions should be based on facts and analysis, not arbitrary percentages. Eliminating the positions of many of our most skilled and experienced at murdering. Skilled and experienced at murdering. That's what they are. This is like a hit squad decrease their hitmen by 20%. Without sound justification, would not create efficiency in the military. It could cripple it, Reed said. Secretary Hegseth Hegseth has shown an eagerness to dismiss military leaders without cause, and I will be skeptical of the rationale for these plans until he explains them before the Armed Services Committee. So I've already told you, I have no problem with the military having a tough time because they have 20% fewer generals. But also, let's remember why Hegseth and Trump are doing this, which Ken Klippenstein does a good job of covering in his analysis. He says Hegseth's belief that the firings will improve the military's warfighting capabilities by rooting out the cabal of Democratic Party ninja operatives is, of course, ridiculous. But this is a classic case of the broken clock being right twice a day. Today's military brass suck at their jobs. They're good at agitating for wars and defending them in jargon-laden testimony to Congress, but ending them, not so much. Well, Ken, I gotta disagree with you a little bit. That's because their job is not to end the wars. I got a secret for you. Their job is to do exactly what they've been doing. Obliterate nations around the world. Kill innocent people. Topple governments. That's their job. Their job is not really to end wars. Their job is not really to bring soldiers home. They don't care. Soldiers are meant to be cannon fodder by their view. So, yeah, they don't suck at their jobs. They're actually very good at what they've been doing, which is just mass murder around the world in order to defend the petrodollar and defend the U.S. system and defend U.S. hegemony. That's what it is. That's what they do. They've been doing it for decades now. Ken Klippenstein says it's difficult to exaggerate the absurd amounts of deference Washington shows the military brass, seeing them in about the same way as the ancient Greeks saw the deities in Mount Olympus. It's so true. And if you watch any media, it doesn't have to be liberal media. If you watch any media, they just fawn over these generals and ex-generals. They have them on every once in a while for interviews, and they say, "Oh, it's such an honor to speak to you." And they just ask them the sweetest little questions, and you can just see them drooling. I mean, honestly, Jake Tapper looks like, you know, a cartoon where you see and the one cartoon character falls in love and hearts start circling around their head and their eyes get big and there's like Pepe Le Pew or some shit. That's how Jake Tapper looks when he interviews a general. But it's not just Jake Tapper, right? It's all of our media. It's Fox News fawns on these generals as much as anyone, which is, they are the leaders of death and destruction perpetrated by the U.S. empire. So that's why the media loves them. Here's one more liberal media freak out. Oh dear, is there going to be a decrease of generals? The Hill says Hegseth sparks fears as he moves to axe generals. And they mean axe as in cut generals, not axe as in the modern way to say ask. All the kids say axe now. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's move to axe the size of the U.S. military's top ranks has triggered concerns of a political purge. And let me remind everyone who needs reminding that although I would never in a million years vote for Donald Trump, he did get elected. These generals did not. So if you are for democracy, I suppose you probably support the guy who got elected than the people who are completely unelectable, not unelectable, but unelected, unaccountable, representatives of the U.S. empire. Now, that doesn't mean Trump actually is representing you in any way, but if you like the faux democracy we have here, then you should be on the side of the guy that was elected, right? When it comes to, I'm not saying you need to endorse everything Trump does. I'm just saying when it's unelected official versus elected official, I suppose you appreciate the guy that was elected if you like democracy, but we don't really have we've got a severe case of faux democracy. Experts worry any move to slash those numbers of generals will be done indiscriminately without care for the institutional knowledge at the top that could be lost. Okay, 2 notes on institutional knowledge. For one thing, what is that knowledge of? Oh, how to obliterate other countries, how to absolutely destroy and murder millions in Iraq, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Yemen, headed towards Iran, Gaza. That's what the institutional knowledge is. It's like saying, don't fire Jeffrey Dahmer. He's got a lot of good institutional knowledge. Yeah, if I need to eat someone, I'll give him a call. But if I need to murder a bunch of people, I'll call up these generals and say, how do you do it? Institutional knowledge. But besides that, let's remember, apparently these morons don't actually have a lot of knowledge because they can't account for 63% of the Pentagon's assets. 63%. That's what they said at the last failed audit. They failed the audit 7 times. They've never successfully passed an audit of the Pentagon. There's trillions upon trillions. I know the number you're probably thinking in your head is $21 trillion of unaccounted for financial adjustments at the Pentagon, but that number is from 2015. Who knows what the number is now? Trillions and trillions of dollars. Thank you, Circle Home, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Keep fighting the Burger Reich. Thank you for supporting the show. I do not frown upon Super Chat. Super Chats help the show. Really appreciate it. So thank you so much. By the way, let's not forget, new Unredacted Tonight comes out tomorrow. Tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. on the East, 4 p.m. on the West. But if you haven't caught last week's episode, it's on the petrodollar. You don't want to miss that one. Anyway, let's see. Institutional knowledge, very important. Let's see. And then there's a quote from Greg Williams, the director of defense information at the nonprofit watchdog Project on Government Oversight, says, we're very concerned, especially with this administration, that this could easily turn into political testing or otherwise clearing out the ranks for political reasons. Yeah, but all of these generals, it's not like any of them were for peace. It's not like any of them were, oh yeah, that hippie general, the one with the long hair and the dream catcher earrings, him? Yeah, they fired the guy that was always trying to create peace at the Pentagon. No, it doesn't exist. The Pentagon is a death machine. That's what it is. I haven't even gotten into it. It's environmental destruction caused by the Pentagon, but there's that too. When a new administration comes in and makes a lot of changes, especially at the very top of the military ranks, especially for what are arguably very political reasons, are those officers woke or not? That raises the concern that we're undermining the nonpartisan tradition. You can't, you can't be woke and be a murderous general in the world's largest murderous murder machine. That's not woke. That's what woke has become to mean. Woke can mean you are a 4-star general that has supported every war we've ever done, bombing children on a daily basis. But you think that black people should be able to work at the Pentagon. You are woke. Ugh. If woke actually meant anything, it would mean being anti-war, like legitimately anti-war, not whatever our people in government are when they call themselves anti-war. It just means they are against like one war, but they like the other one. Liberals are freaking out. I got news for you, liberals. Maniacs have been running this thing for a long time. Let's see. Did I missed a super chat? Oh no, I saw that one. 2 Fs. Thank you for the super chat. I think I put it on the screen, didn't I? Appreciate you super chatting it up, supporting the show. Okay, real quick, before we get to this kind of deep dive into Zelensky and Ukraine, it's really fascinating, honestly. It's like some of the nitty-gritty details that I didn't even know. But before we get to that, real quick, even the New York Times has revealed why Trump actually made his 180 on Yemen, which I basically covered it the other day, and we basically said the same thing, that it was because the U.S. was basically losing while attacking Yemen. But even the New York Times is admitting this. Don't forget to click thumbs up and subscribe, everybody. Oh, and when you subscribe, I got a new after this story, I'm going to tell you about my new YouTube channel. I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to reveal that. It might be a poor choice, but I think I'm going to do that. Anyway. But yeah, click subscribe, click the bell icon. I don't know if it matters because this is so suppressed, but we'll see. Anyway, why Trump suddenly declared victory over the Houthi militia? The militant group in Yemen was still firing at ships and shooting down drones while U.S. forces were burning through munitions. Basically, we were losing, is the reality. We were very much losing. When he approved a campaign to reopen shipping in the Red Sea by bombing the Houthi militant group into submission, President Trump wanted to see results within 30 days of the strikes. By day 31, Trump, ever leery of drawn-out military entanglements in the Middle East, demanded a progress report according to administration officials, but the results were not there. United States had not even established air superiority over the Houthis. Instead, what was emerging after 30 days of a stepped-up campaign against the Yemeni group was another expensive but inconclusive American military entanglement. The Houthis shot down several Reaper drones. I covered that extensively the other day. They were still firing on ships, including an American aircraft carrier, and the U.S. strikes burned through weapons and munitions at a rate of $1 billion in 1 month. $1 billion they burned through in 1 month of attacking Yemen. Announcing the cessation of hostilities, the president sounded almost admiring. Yeah, I covered that the other day too, where Trump was like, these guys are brave, man. These guys know what they're doing. Initially, he said they were going to be completely annihilated when he announced the strikes. But then when he made a deal with them and announced the end of the strikes, he said, we hit them very hard and they had a great ability to withstand punishment. You could say there was a lot of bravery there. You got to admire. Sometimes Trump has this honesty that most of the time it's just so it's like 99% just the biggest lies that ever been lied. And then he's got this 1% where you're like, that is true. And no other politician would ever say that. He said, there's a lot of bravery. They gave us their word that they wouldn't be shooting at ships anymore. And we honor that. Mr. Trump has never bought into long-running military entanglements and spent his first term trying to bring home troops from Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq, and he failed in all regards. He did try to. I have often reported reminded people that Trump said he was bringing the troops home from Syria. Right? We still have troops in Syria. Trump said he was bringing home troops from Syria, and days later, we announced a big chemical attack had happened in Syria. Right. Which, of course, OPCW whistleblowers have said was bullshit. Anyway, she added that the U.S. military had carried out more than 1,100 strikes. That's the White House spokesperson. In those 30 days, the Houthis shot down 7 Reaper drones, $30 million each. Several American F-16s, F-35 jets were nearly struck, making for the real possibility of American casualties. That possibility became reality when 2 pilots and a flight deck crew member were injured in 2 episodes where F-18 Super Hornets fell into the Red Sea, which is like, how much are they? Like $100 million each? They fell off the boat. You don't turn so quickly. One of them fell. One of the thingies, what, like your mop? No, the jet. The jet thingy, it fell over. And I think it's at the bottom of the waters now. Oh my God, we're the best. We're just the best. And through it all, the Houthis were still shooting at vessels, drones, fortifying their bunkers, moving weapon stockpiles underground, not really phased. Houthi officials and their supporters swiftly declared victory too after the deal with Trump, saying on social media with the hashtag Yemen defeats America. This is kind of funny when you compare the leaked signal chats between Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard and Mike Waltz, and they were like, "We just bombed the Houthi militants," and then one of them sent back a fist with an American flag and a fire emoji. Yeah, America with our burning fisting. Yeah, how'd that burning fisting go? Seems like it did not win. Where are the flag? Where are the American flag and fist emojis now? So yes, even New York Times admitting that within a month, the Houthis beat us. Okay. This may be a poor choice, but I'm going to announce this. I have created a new YouTube channel. It's been up for like a day. And it's because I want to see, there's a chance that I am, even though I'm crazy suppressed on my YouTube channel, there's a chance that it's kind of I was kind of grandfathered in because I was so suppressed back when I was at RT and everything. And it's possible that if I start a new channel, I'll deal with a little less suppression. I'm not certain. So I'm not saying anything is switching. This channel is going to keep going exactly as it is. So if you don't want to, you don't have to subscribe to the new one. But it would help me a lot if you go and click subscribe to youtube.com. I have to look at I gotta look it up actually. It's at Unredacted Tonight, but it's spelled fine. I had to spell it kind of wrong, unfortunately. Yeah, Unredacted Tonight with the letter 2. So I will put the link in the comments. Anyway, I'm just asking you to go over there and subscribe for free and click the bell icon. So it's youtube.com/the @ and then Unredacted Tonight, except tonight is spelled the number 2, NIGHT. I'll eventually create a easier link for that. But the reason I created it is because I want to do some testing as to whether I'm a little less suppressed on that channel. By the way, that channel will only have Unredacted Tonight, so it won't have my live streams. It'll just be for Unredacted. Thank you, Matt. Matt says he's the 4th subscriber over there. Yes. I just started it. I would love you guys to, but when you click subscribe, make sure you then click the bell icon and turn on notifications and all that stuff. And we'll see. It could help. It could even if it just helps you guys find out about Unredacted Tonight when each episode comes out, it'll be worth it. So would love you guys to subscribe over there and help me out. And hopefully I can get to 1,000 subscribers in not too long. All right. But I want to get to this. This is really fascinating. It's kind of the full-on exposing of Zelensky, how co-opted he is, and why throughout this whole proxy war with the United States. And it's written by one of Ukraine's top political scientists, which means that this guy now has to fear for his life because he's let's see, Circle Home, 31st subscriber. Doug says he's the 23rd subscriber. You guys rock. Love you. And it's really fascinating coming from an insider, but it means this political science is now like can't be in Ukraine. He's like got to fear for his life now because they've announced sanctions on him. They want him dead because he revealed the truth about Zelensky. So let's get into this. A new book written by one of Ukraine's top historians and political scientists, Konstantin Bondarenko, titled "The Joker: The True Story of Volodymyr Zelensky's Rise to Power," gives the full story and all of its context. Bondarenko has sanctions placed on him. Bondarenko offers a scathing expose of the 2014 Western-backed coup in Ukraine. Most of you now know about this, that we helped create a coup in Ukraine in 2014, way before Russia invaded. Against the country's democratically elected president, Viktor Yanukovych, which he described as a controversial event combining elements of a color revolution and a coup d'etat. Coup d'etat is a legitimate uprising of the people. He's separating that from a color revolution, which is a kind of fake and foreign-funded uprising, which the United States has funded many color revolutions, kind of fake. What is the term they use instead of grassroots? It's astroturf. Astroturfing a revolution. It's fake grassroots. Bondarenko noted that the reason the West wanted a coup against Yanukovych was because he was not willing to fully oppose Russia. So even though he largely sided with the West, he just wasn't fully opposing Russia. The West needed Ukraine to be anti-Russia. The West needed a Ukraine charged for a confrontation and even war against Russia. A Ukraine it could use as a tool in a fight against Russia. Yanukovych was overthrown in a violent coup. The U.S. helped install a more U.S.-friendly government in Ukraine. Supported by, from Bondarenko, supported by external forces, these politicians immediately declared that they would follow all recommendations of Western institutions, the IMF and the World Bank. Basically, if you want to lead Ukraine, you need to swear up and down you will listen to all recommendations of the West, the IMF, and the World Bank. These Western-imposed IMF quote-unquote reforms had a dire impact on Ukraine's economy, as they always do. The reforms included a sharp increase in utility rates, the abolition of benefits for certain categories of the population, and harsh economic measures. It opened the doors to Western corporations, entirely undermining the concept of sovereignty. Ukraine's GDP shrunk by 17%. The exchange rate went down. The inflation rose from 24 to 43%. That's in 1 year, 2014 to 2015. Inflation went from 24% to 43%. Significant decline in industrial production, leading to Ukraine losing its economic cluster that manufactured goods with high added value. Mining, energy, chemicals, food production, all sustained loss. An increase in unemployment and the immigration of citizens from Ukraine to neighboring countries increased. Utility rates increasing by 123%, reaching up to 20% of family income spent on utilities. The key tenets of the U.S.-backed Poroshenko regime, that's who we put in after Yanukovych, created an anti-Russian project, indulged the interests of the West, primarily the United States, fostered militarism and aggressive anti-Russian sentiment, attempted to maintain the corrupt system that had formed in Ukraine during the 1990s and survived 2 Maidan coups. In other words, Bondarenko wrote, Poroshenko was essentially building a backward puppet state of the Latin American African type that hid behind jingoistic patriotic slogans. It was a free-for-all for the West to just eat up Ukraine, steal their resources, and turn them as much against Russia as possible. In 2019, Ukrainian President Zelensky ran a populist anti-establishment campaign against Poroshenko, a comedian and actor. Much of Zelensky, he really gave a bad name to comedians. Much of Zelensky's popularity came from his portrayal of Vasyl Holoborodka, can't pronounce these words, in the political comedy TV show Servant of the People. Most of you know this, right? That Zelensky was a comedian in a TV show where he played the president of Ukraine and pretended to be a president that actually stood up for Ukraine. And in reality, it was very different. In one episode of the TV show, Zelensky's character as president, refuses a suggestion from an IMF representative to sell Ukrainian land and gives an impassioned speech, ending with a vulgar remark addressed to the head of the IMF. This led Zelensky, the love of this TV show, which was airing kind of endlessly, led Zelensky to win with over 70% of the vote in 2019. Because people are dumb all around the world, not just Ukrainians. All people are dumb. And all people are dumb. And they honestly thought that this actor, Zelensky, was the character. They thought he was going to behave the same as the character. Hell, people probably thought the same with Donald Trump, that he was going to be the same as he was in The Apprentice, as if that's not a faked reality show. On March 7th, U.S. Deputy Secretary of State David Hale held new meetings with the main presidential candidates, including Zelensky. Zelensky was told very clearly about the U.S. interests in Ukraine and the need to follow rules set by the American authorities. cooperation with the IMF, continuing the confrontation with Russia, sabotaging the Minsk agreements, which were meant to bring peace between Ukraine and Russia, and protecting the interests of transnational corporations, among other things. So this is what many of us said, but this is the first time you're hearing the first time, well, maybe not the first time, but this is one of the first times I'm hearing of someone who was like in those circles, in those rooms, one of Ukraine's top political scientists saying, yeah, Zelensky was brought into a room with the U.S., who was it, Secretary of State, and told, here are the rules of you being president. Mr. Hale also provided arguments to convince Zelensky that sanctions for not adhering to the rules of the game would be excruciating, and that the U.S. would find levers to influence the will of the Ukrainian people during the election. The real Zelensky, not the actor playing the TV show, caved to Western pressure almost immediately. Ukraine remained a dependent state without any of its own identity and was mainly governed from Washington. The United States played a decisive role in staffing appointments, foreign policy, finance, the fight against corruption, supposedly, the pharmaceutical industry, national security, and defense. The tasks that Zelensky's team declared as top priorities, lifting the moratorium on land sales, activating the land market, public declaration of citizen income and spending, were in fact tasks Ukraine was assigned either by the IMF or large multinational corporations. So Zelensky was a puppet from day one. And he was told clearly, not even quietly. He was told clearly, here are the rules of the game. Weirdly, my comments do not seem like they're updating from you all, but anyway, so sorry if I don't see yours. There was one issue between Zelensky and the West. One of his main policy platforms was to implement the Minsk Accords. So you remember, this is prior to Russia going into Ukraine. This was meant to create peace between Russia and Ukraine, because even prior to Russia going in 2022, Ukrainians were killing culturally Russian Ukrainians. So in the Donbass region, you had right-wing Ukrainians murdering culturally Russian Ukrainians for being Russian, for speaking Russian, for having Russian businesses, etc. So a peace plan, the Minsk Accords, that would end the fighting that erupted in eastern Ukraine between pro-Russia Ukrainians and Ukrainian nationalists. This became a paradoxical situation for Zelensky, given that he had secretly signed on to continue the pro-West policies, which did not want an end to the war in Donbass. So he's sitting, and here's a photo of this back then. Here's Zelensky, Putin, Angela Merkel, Macron, sitting together at a table, signing something that says they will stick to these parameters and keep peace in Ukraine. And yet Zelensky knows, while he's doing this, that he's been told the rules of the game are, no, there will be no peace. The rules of the game are, you go along with what the West wants, or you're out. And who knows how bad your out will be. Is it going to be the out like Assad, or is it going to be the out like Gaddafi? Anyway, so paradoxical situation for Zelensky. Bondarenko noted in the book, Zelensky was threatened by Andrei Beletsky, leader of the National Core far-right party and former commander of the Azov Battalion. That, as most of you know, is a neo-Nazi group in Ukraine, and they are one of the most powerful groups in the military in Ukraine. So that when people say Ukraine is run by Nazis, or the Ukraine military is run by Nazis, that's what they mean. They don't mean that the percentages, it may only be 10 or 20% are actually neo-Nazis, but they're the ones running the show. So anyway, he was threatened by this former Azov leader to not end the war in Donbass and withdraw troops. Basically, let us keep killing people in Donbass. However, after this, Zelensky, along with Russia, France, Germany, met in Normandy and agreed to implement the Minsk Accords and do a full ceasefire in the Donbass region. They were never fully implemented, however. Bondarenko wrote that Angela Merkel later remarked, and I covered this at the time, and many times since, later remarked that Zelensky was a tough opponent when it came to implementing the Minsk Accords. She was under the impression that Zelensky did not want to implement the agreements and, in fact, believed that they were unfeasible because they were unpopular in Ukraine. But also she has said since then that the Minsk Accords were mainly meant to allow Ukraine to rearm, to heavily arm itself, to prepare for war with Russia, rather than to actually abide by the Minsk Accords. Boris Johnson, and this is another famous moment that many of us have pointed out, which is Boris Johnson making sure there was no peace between Zelensky and Putin, between Ukraine and Russia. Boris Johnson blocked the peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine at Istanbul, Turkey, in April 2022. So that's like a month or a little over a month since the war began in 2022. And Boris Johnson, as I've said many times, went running to Zelensky to make sure the peace talks would end. And the peace talks were done. They like all that was left was for them to be signed, and there would have been peace. During his meeting with Zelensky, the British Prime Minister was generous with his compliments. Bondarenko wrote about the well-documented instance of Boris Johnson convincing Zelensky to abandon the peace talks and just fight. The West decided to put an end to the negotiating process and opted for a military victory of the Ukrainian armed forces over Russia, which everyone knew would never happen. They maybe didn't know how long Ukraine would hold out, but everyone knew Ukraine was not going to defeat Russia. In other words, the let's just fight position was not Johnson's personal whim. He was merely voicing the collective position of the West, which I have said many times. Boris Johnson was the face of it, but he was sent there at the behest of the West in general, and especially the U.S. Former German Chancellor Schroeder said in an interview with a newspaper I'm not going to try and pronounce, that during the negotiations in Istanbul, Ukraine and Russia were ready to sign a peace agreement, but the negotiations were sabotaged by powerful forces. Before the Istanbul talks in March 2022, one of the members of the Ukrainian National Group was a banker, negotiation group, was a banker named Denis Kariv, whose presence in the negotiation group was not accidental because his closer ties to Russia was used by the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine's Ministry of Defense to create direct unofficial contact between Ukraine and Russia. So this guy, a banker, is in the negotiation group and he's helping kind of have backdoor conversations between Ukraine and Russia, which can be a good thing because it gets around all the other players. But shortly after that, Kiriv was detained and shot by the various intelligence agencies led by the Ukraine's Secret Service. Given the close ties between U.S. intelligence and the SBU, Ukraine's Secret Service, this instance raises questions about U.S. involvement in that assassination, seemingly to block peace talks. In August of 2022, Bondarenko noted that the UN Secretary General and the president of Turkey arrived in Ukraine in order to meet with Zelensky and brought with them proposals previously agreed upon from the Russian side. So they came with this proposal that had all these stipulations: recognizing Crimea as Russia, Ukraine adopts neutrality, the separatist regions in Donbass will be recognized, holding UN monitoring referendum in other regions. Ukraine will be given a neutral, non-aligned status and security guarantees from UN members, reducing armaments and military personnel in Ukraine, UN peacekeeping contingent deployed in Ukraine, parliamentary election held in Ukraine, presidential elections held in Ukraine. Ukraine's constitution will be amended to ensure full transparency and equal rights for Russian-speaking citizens. Bondarenko noted that Zelensky rejected the proposal without even commenting on it. The meeting lasted 40 minutes, and immediately after, Ukraine began shelling territories of Crimea and others, a decision that was likely made by the West. So he rejected it with essentially without even looking at it. At the last moment, Zelensky stated that he could discuss. So Xi Jinping, head of China, right, was going to meet with Zelensky, and of course, that's a good chance for a peace talks because Xi Jinping is close with Russia as well. So he's going to meet with Zelensky, and at the last moment, Zelensky stated that he could discuss only one document with Xi Jinping, the Ukrainian peace plan. The Ukrainian peace plan was a plan created by Zelensky, which included things like Russia ceding all territory back to Ukraine, including Crimea, something Russia would never accept. The meeting was canceled. So Zelensky puts forward a peace plan that no one ever thought Russia would agree to. And he says, unless we're discussing this, I don't want to discuss anything else. Basically, it's a way of making sure war will continue, is you put forward peace plans that are non-negotiable, and it just keeps the war going. This, again, was likely done at the behest of the West because the U.S. and the EU had long been aiming to prevent China and its projects from gaining a foothold in Ukraine, as well as stop it from strengthening Chinese interests. Bondarenko noted the war became a conflict to prevent Ukraine from becoming a Russian colony, as well as a conflict to ensure Ukraine's right to become an American colony. And I love the way you phrase that. Ukraine's become an American colony. And the portions of Ukraine that have been sold off to corporations, mainly U.S. corporations and other Western corporations, is larger than the land that Russia has taken. So Russia has gained less of Ukraine than Western corporations have gained in this proxy war. Which is hilarious when you think about it that way. Bondarenko writes extensively about how Zelensky's image was whitewashed by Western media. Zelensky began traveling abroad with increasing frequency. The West worked on shaping his image, trying to create a figure somewhere between a new Churchill and a new Che Guevara. This flattered Zelensky, who was accustomed to flamboyant shows, applause, theatrical performances. He was back in his element, grand speeches, glorious photos with the most influential figures, appearances at prestigious festivals. He became the world of glamour. He was not merely popular. He became the latest fashion. Zelensky became an element of pop culture. He appeared at the 64th Grammy Awards. He spoke at the opening of the Cannes Film Festival. He spoke at the opening of the Berlin Film Festival. Sean Penn came to Ukraine and gave his Oscar to Zelensky. Oh, Sean Penn, you are such a fucking tool. He wrote contracts were signed with more than 60 Western lobbying and PR agencies, whose task included arranging pompous publications in leading Western media, blocking negative articles, and organizing meetings and speeches for Zelensky. They turned Zelensky into like a fake, like they turned him into the real version of whatever that dumb TV show he was that he did. Like, it's just amazing the amount of PR that went into Zelensky. They tend to talk about how this is a great contradiction. This image of him being the, wonderful and magnanimous leader, a brave leader of Ukraine, is completely opposite of how he's viewed in Ukraine by most people, because he completely ended democracy, right? They've had no elections. He got rid of all media that is critical of Ukraine. Even some journalists have been basically killed in prison for going against him, or going against the Ukraine's narrative. Most TV channels began airing the same program, the Unified Marathon, it's called, created under the control of the president's office and broadcast on TV channels. Severe censorship was introduced in the media. A special body was established responsible for interpreting correct and incorrect interpretations of events, basically crushing all dissent. New language policies. Oh, yeah, this is so hypocritical. Excluded millions of Russian-speaking citizens from the law. Russian schools were closed. Monuments to Russian writers were dismantled. Streets and squares were renamed. Despite Article 10 of the Ukrainian Constitution, which guarantees free advancement of the Russian language, everything was being systematically eradicated. As mentioned before, Zelensky decided to put the Constitution on hold, although it was precisely due to the support of Russian-speaking citizens that Zelensky became president in 2019, because they're the ones that wanted peace more than anything. So they supported him. Also, he's natively Russian-speaking. The hypocrisy of the situation was evident in the fact that while persecuting citizens for using the Russian language, burning Russian language books, and banning the use of Russian in schools, Zelensky and his entourage continued to use Russian in everyday life. The West discreetly closed its eyes to the lawlessness going on in Ukraine. By 2023, it became clear that Zelensky, who came to power amid expectations of greater freedom and was seen as positive and fresh in a stale Ukrainian system, turned into a morose dictator, a despot, a fanatic ready to imprison all dissenters and suspects while also sending all Ukrainian citizens to the front lines. Where he once merely kowtowed to the far right during the Minsk process, he now seems to be embracing some of its leading figures, like the Azov commander, Denis Prokopenko. So there you go. That's the inside details of the proxy war in Ukraine from one of Ukraine's top political scientists and historians who I guarantee you can no longer live in Ukraine because he told the truth. And although I didn't have all the details about some of those things, what do you know? Me and most of independent media or a lot of independent media, were right about all this all along, since day one. And thanks to all that propaganda garbage, I lost my old show Redacted Tonight. All the suppression and censorship that's been against me is kind of connected to the pro-proxy war propaganda. I wasn't stuttering there. I meant pro-proxy war, not proxy war, but a pro-proxy war. And yeah, there you have it. Yeah, and of course there was Russiagate before that. Thank you, Public Domain, for mentioning that. I'll mention again, guys, that I have a new YouTube channel. Nothing's changing on this one. So if you're watching on my YouTube and not watching on Rumble or somewhere else, my current YouTube stays the same. But I'm starting a new one to see if the suppression is maybe not quite as strong there, because it's possible this channel, my original YouTube channel, well, it's not even my original. It's actually my backup YouTube channel that you're watching right now, because my first one with 250,000 subscribers was banned around the world. So, wow, Alex Love just increased the Patreon tier to $10. I love you, Alex. Thank you. Rock on. And thanks for the support. But anyway, that new channel, which I'd love for you to subscribe to for free, is youtube.com/@unredactedtonight, but it's the number 2 when you spell tonight. So @unredacted, number 2, night is where you'll find it. And again, I'll create a better link for that next time. But yes, I will see you. Let's see. Tomorrow is Unredacted Tonight. A new episode airs 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And then Friday, another live stream, 3 p.m. So hope to see you at that. If you want all this on podcast, all these things are podcasts too. All my stuff's at linktree.com/Lee Camp. And hope to see you there. Okay, and someone was asking, Dave asks, ever thought of suing YouTube for canceling the channel? I have heard of others doing it local court and winning on the ground of hurting your business. I have not tried suing them. It does sound like an uphill battle, though. And also you got to pay for lawyers and shit like that. All right, folks, thanks a lot. See you tomorrow for Unredacted. Keep fighting.